we haven't talked about something here on Very Cold Lasagna in the last 2 weeks. I just can't put my finger on it. Where is it now? Oh, yeah. Here it is. It's something called 49ers football, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't talked about my San Francisco 49ers in these last 2 weeks. Why is that? Well, they're on something called a bye week. They were on a little break for all my filthy casual sports fans that don't know what a bye week is. But in essence, they were on a vacation, a break from their football activities. So they were chilling, grilling, whatever they do during this break from football. So now their break is over. They begin the second half of their season, and they certainly begin it in the land of all elite. The San Francisco 49ers, who last time we saw them, oh boy, did they look awful. They were on a skid of sorts. Now, hope to end that skid against a team that were on the opposite of a skid. They were on a grid, if that makes any sense. But nonetheless, they were trending upward, and now they get to take on a team trying to continue that trajectory in the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars, who are sponsored by Tony Khan, C-O-N, ladies and gentlemen. Not K-H-A-N-C-O-N. Tony Khan. So anyway, here we are with another week of 49ers football. We haven't talked about them in a while, so there's a lot of catching up to do. And boy, last time we saw my San Francisco 49ers, boy, did they look awful in the last game that we saw them. Not just the last game that we saw them, but the last 3 games that we saw them. But in terms of the last game that we saw them against the Cincinnati Bengals back in week 8, it was kind of like the capper on the last 3 games that we saw them. After starting out 5-0, they lost 3 straight games, including a bad home loss to the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow, 31-17. Don't let the box score fool you. Sure, they cut it close a few times, but that top-ranked defense, they couldn't get to Joe Burrow at all. Much like the previous 2 weeks with Kirk Cousins and B.J. Walker, and they had serious trouble in coverage, like the week prior against Kirk Cousins. Same thing with Joe Burrow. It's just even worse because Joe Burrow actually has receivers, and they couldn't even make simple tackles on the simplest of plays. And then on the offensive side of the ball, it gets a little bit worse because at that point, they had a couple key injuries that really affected the offense. And that goodwill on the offense in the weeks prior to that was erased in a hurry. They missed Deebo Samuel. They missed left tackle Trent Williams. And apparently those injuries were severely hampered enough on the offense that Kyle Shanahan looked like a deer in the headlights. He clearly didn't know what to do. He couldn't trust anybody. He DTA'd, didn't trust anyone, not even his reserve players. So pretty much what he did was run Christian McCaffrey into the ground, and in essence, the running game was shut down. So in essence, even further, put pressure on Brock Purdy to throw the damn ball even more. And what did that lead to? Brock Purdy become more prone to turnovers, even more so than before. Like, we saw Brock Purdy throw 2 turnovers per game in that 3-game losing skid. Like, yikes. Like, 2 turnovers a game. Not good. And these 2 turnovers were not just like, casual turnovers. No, these were 2 back-breaking turnovers that, the Niners, they could have stayed in the game and maybe could have even won the game. But no, these were 2 turnovers that cost the Niners the game. Like, these games against the Vikings, the Bengals. Like, these are not good. So, all in all, the 49ers, they really got to get this game in week 10 if they want to get out of the skid. Otherwise, you look at 5-4 and you're in trouble. Meanwhile, for the all-elite Jacksonville Jaguars, I say all-elite because, Tony Khan, C-O-N. Last time they played back in week 8 in the early morning game, they pulled out a gutsy win in a wet one because it was raining at that time over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Trevor Lawrence, he had a solid day, but it was mainly because of the running back Travis Etienne. He had a big rushing day, and in essence with this Jaguars team, they sometimes have a shaky secondary, but that pass rushing duo of edge rushers, Josh Allen, not the quarterback, that's in Buffalo, Josh Allen, the edge rusher, and their first round pick from a couple years ago, Trayvon Walker, they've been dominating the trenches. So that pass rushing duo has been doing wonders for the Jaguars. And then offensively, Trevor Lawrence, he's back to having a nice, subtle campaign that I'm kind of a little surprised that not a lot of people talk about. And he's shaking off that rough early stretch of the season thanks to his new weapon in Calvin Ridley, his clearly go-to receiver. So the Jaguars are quietly trying to up themselves in the AFC. So it'll be an interesting test for my San Francisco 49ers. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for my 49ers heading into this game, it's clearly the bye weeks certainly have seemed to help them because they will be getting back Deebo Samuel, who missed the last 2 games before the bye week with a shoulder injury that he suffered in the Cleveland game. So he was back at practice this week, and according to Kyle Shanahan, he is a full go. He's not even on the injury report, so they're getting the key weapon on this offense back. So that's good news for the 49ers. Same with the offense, left tackle Trent Williams, who also suffered an injury in that game against the Browns. In terms of his injury, it was an ankle sprain. He's listed as questionable. Kyle Shanahan said he'd be a really questionable. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming that's a game time decision. So if he's not out there, then oh boy. Tackle Jalen Moore and Cole McKivitz are going to have some interesting tests at hand with that pass rushing duo of Josh Allen, not the quarterback, and Trayvon Walker. So big task ahead nonetheless. And then guard Aaron Banks was already said to be out a few weeks with the toe injury that was mentioned a couple weeks ago before the bye week. So yeah, that offensive line of the 49ers is definitely going to be very tested in this game, in the trenches of the land of all elite. So staying with the 49ers for a little bit because there was a little bit of news regarding a few players having their practice windows open. So Darrell Luter and Robert Beal, 2 players on defense, and rookies, as well as corner Samuel Womack, they had their practice windows open. They're listed as questionable to play. So more depth is definitely needed, especially in a defense that's really struggling right now. And for the Jaguars, not really much to report here. Zay Jones, one of their other receivers, he remains out with a knee injury. The Jaguars were hoping that he was going to be available for this game, so unfortunately he is not. So that's one less weapon for them. And then on the defensive end, corner Tyson Campbell and safety Andre Cisco are listed as questionable for this game with hamstring injury. So if they are out for this game, that could be a reasonable hit for the Jaguars secondary. So obviously there were a couple big stories for both of these teams during the bye week for them. One of those big stories for the 49ers was the trade acquisition for Washington Commanders edge rusher Chase Young at the trade deadline. So fortunately for the Niners, they didn't really have to give all that much for them. So all they had to really give up for Chase Young was their 3rd round compensatory pick, their very late 3rd round pick. So, I mean, I really don't mind this move. I kind of like it. Chase Young is going to be starting alongside Nick Bosa from what I'm hearing. So, I mean, I hope it pans out. I hope Chase Young stays healthy. Hopefully he can prove himself. So Nick Bosa should certainly benefit from being reunited with his Ohio State teammate. They were teammates, but hey, you learn something new every day. So hopefully this move pans out. And yeah, it didn't really all cost that much. So that's the even better thing. And speaking of trades, the Jaguars made a trade of their own for a lineman, a guard, in Urza Cleveland for the Minnesota Vikings. So yeah, I'm not sure if it was kind of a good pick for them, but nonetheless, Doug Peterson made it clear that Urza is going to be a rotational player in the offensive line. But the interesting thing is that he's listed as questionable with an injury of his own. So either way, whether he plays or not, he's going to be a rotational player because he said left guard Walker Little is already a starter. So whatever, it is what it is. So one other thing that I wanted to note for the 49ers is that their defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks, is going to go from the booth to the sidelines. So you had a few moves during the season where coordinators that were in the booth were moved to the sidelines to motivate players to do better, to help out their players on their respective sides, where it's the offense with Matt Canada. Now you're seeing it with Steve Wilkes on defense. We'll see if it pans out. Let's see if it does make any difference. But let's hope that the defense executes better. That's pretty much the main thing. Sure, we've crapped on Steve Wilkes the last couple times we talked about that Niner defense that's so top ranked. But it's all about the execution too. Like, these players have to do better. These players have to make the simplest tackles. These players have to, execute the schemes that Steve Wilkes is throwing at them. So it's all about execution for this Niners defense. So looking at my keys to victory for both these teams, for the 49ers on offense first, Brock Purdy, I would like to see him not always hit the home run ball. I appreciate that he's willing to throw the ball way downfield a lot more compared to the other last quarterback that we had, the starting one. But there are times where he gets a little too aggressive with that, and his decisions to try and go for the home run kill have gotten him in trouble, especially in these last 3 games. So he's had 4 interceptions, all of them backbreaking, and when he tries to go for that kill, it doesn't necessarily end pretty. So it doesn't hurt to try and throw for a check down every now and then, but against this Jaguars coming along defense, especially against that pass rush, and with this offensive line in front of you, I hope he finds that balance, especially with a tough stretch coming up. And then defensively, I hope there's been serious adjustments made coming out of this bye week, because, these fixes like the Chase Young trade, and then Steve Wilkes moving down the sideline, it's not going to fix all their problems. At least, they're getting some help in the secondary with, hopefully it's help with Sam Womack and Darrell Luter. Hopefully that gives them a little bit of life in that defense. But it's all about execution. That pass rush has to find ways to get to Trevor Lawrence. Enough of the straight bullshit pass rush, like bull rushing. You still got a pass rush, but you can't go straight in like you're bull riding. And then the secondary needs to tackle with discipline, because they are lacking the discipline, ladies and gentlemen. So the defense, I just hope they made some serious adjustments coming out of this bye week, and they get back to playing like one of the top ones in the NFL. And then for the Jaguars, attack the 49ers' biggest weakness, that is the offensive line. If Trent Williams is still out, he doesn't play in this game, then this leaves that pass rushing duo and gives them plenty of opportunities to feast on the backup, Jalen Moore, and starting right tackle Colin McKivitz, who, sure, we haven't really mentioned his name all that much. He's been doing very solid, but he's definitely going to get tested here. So for the Jaguars, disrupt that offensive line, and the 49ers offense will remain very one-dimensional, especially if they disrupt the running game in Christian McCaffrey, especially Kyle Shanahan keeps running his ass into the ground. And then for the Jaguars offense, make the most of your red zone trips. One thing that I've noticed looking at Jaguars highlights, they kind of struggle in the red zone. For as good as Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are at advancing the ball downfield, with their offense, one of their weaknesses is trying to get into the end zone when they're in that 20-yard striking distance. I don't know what it is. For one reason or another, they only hit pay dirt just 10 times out of their 21 trips so far in the season, which is one of the worst in the NFL. So the Jaguars want to pull away from this supposedly strong 49ers defense. They have to come away with more than just 3 points. They can't come off the field, let's bring in our kicker in. They have to strike gold. They have to strike pay dirt if they want to come away with a win over San Francisco. So overall, it's kind of a hard game to pick because both teams are coming off their bye. You don't really know what to expect. Sure, there'll be changes made by both teams, adjustments made coming into the second half of their season, which both of them are starting, by the way. So you don't really know what you're expecting. I really don't either. So who knows what to expect. I mean, I would certainly like the Niners to win, but at the same time, we don't really know, especially in the land of all elite. So let me know your thoughts on this game coming up this Sunday between the 49ers and the Jaguars in the comments below. And, well, until next time, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. This is DylanLasagna signing out of another 49ers preview for the 2023 NFL season. And peace out.